Thank you, Catherine. And welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. And thank you again to Peter for offering to host this session alongside myself, or be our guest presenter for this session. I've known Peter for a long time. I haven't seen him for a long time, but I have known him for a long time. And I recall many years ago, Peter speaking at the PACE conferences about his passion for the front of house and how to engage more widely as a business. And I felt that at that time Peter's passion for the subject really shone through. And I was delighted to see that Peter had taken up the post at Galvin at Windows a year or so ago, 18 months maybe?
No, it's less than a year, Neil. Not even a
Is
year,
it
yeah.
Really? Oh, all right. So
it's like, 3 weeks before close. Yeah, but it's come up to a year. So I think it's
a year.
11 months, all about last year.
Yeah. So I thought that when we were putting a program together, I was conscious that we wanted to mix up the program so that we had some chefs, showing their wares and their skills, but also to have some topics that covered more about the education aspects that are affecting us in colleges and universities, but also front of house and food service and hospitality management. And I couldn't think of a better person than Peter to talk about this. And I know from knowing Peter for during this time that it'll be really interesting and insightful in what Peter's about to share with us. So without further ado, Peter, I'll hand over to you. And just a couple of house rules. If people could just leave their mics off during Peter's talk, please raise your hand using one of the reaction buttons down at the bottom of your screen. If you press reactions, you should have a little raise hand feature, which I've just put on my screen if you want to have a practice. And also, if you go back to reactions, you should be able to lower your hand. If you haven't got those ones, you've probably got an older edition of Zoom, but you can probably put a thumbs up or something like that, and then we'll know that that you want to speak. Then you can turn your mics off and come on in. Anything else that you want to say, put in the chat. We'll keep an eye on that throughout, and we can certainly raise those questions on your behalf. So that's it. We haven't got a session following this one, so we might be able to run over slightly. I won't have to sort of speak people out bang on past because we were a couple of minutes late starting. So without further ado, over to you, Peter.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Neil. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak with the audience, especially on front of house, which is definitely something I'm generally really passionate about. Bit funny doing it on Zoom, I must say. It's something I've been saying that we're all getting used to now. So this is like the second time I've spoke to a group via Zoom. So you're going to have to deal with me for the next 50 minutes with this accent of mine, guys, and I hope you can all understand me quite clearly. I'll keep the tone down because there's no one there doing this to me. But what I wanted to do today when we talk about a masterclass in front of house, what I thought was really important was just to share a little bit of my journey in hospitality. And I felt the reason it was important to do that in the first bit was I think the leaders we become and the managers we become and the service we give and how we manage our teams is all a reflection of how we've come up through the years in our industry. So I know there's been some key lessons along the way that I learned how to create great service and how to manage a team. And unfortunately, I work with some operators and learned how to not do it and the big lessons I learned from how not to do it. So I thought in the first part, I'll give a little overview of that. And I'll bring you up to my current position. As Neil said, I am now the general manager at Galvin at Windows. Big act to follow Chris Galvin and Philly. I was just watching their session before mine, so no pressure on that one. But I am currently working as the general manager for Chris Galvin. And it'd be really interesting to talk about why that was the right position for me and how I envision moving forward with the team at Windows. Unfortunately, most of my time at Windows has been crisis management because we're in the pandemic since it started. But we've got a lot of plans and a lot of exciting projects in line at Galvin at Windows. So a little bit about where my career came from, obviously from Liverpool, never lost the accent. It just seems to get stronger younger. And like many young people, when I was 17, I was really lucky to get an opportunity to leave Liverpool and go to Miami, where my sister had got a modeling contract. So I really, like many people, fell into the industry. I got no exams at school, not good academically at all at school. But when I got to Miami, I actually got into construction, which I was really bad at, honestly. Me Reebok Classics, trying to be a roofer, it was terrible. But because there was no other opportunity, I got the chance to work as a dishwasher. And the reason I'm sharing this story, there was a big lesson in this situation that I think is important to share. And when I got the job as the dishwasher, I had like a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I didn't want to wash dishes, you know, thinking a 17-year-old lad, like, why would I be washing dishes? But when I got to the restaurant and I started washing the dishes, this guy come up to me and he said, "Oh, are you Peter?" And I said, "He knows my name." And I was like, "Yeah." And he went, "Oh, I'm Nick, I'm the owner of the restaurant." And I was like, "Oh, okay." He said, "Have you got 5 minutes? I would like to have a chat with you." And being a 17-year-old lad, and I, you know, we won't go into too much detail, but I wasn't very confident and no one had really valued me, like throughout school and stuff. I didn't get much value from my education teachers. And this guy sat me down and he actually gave me my first ever cappuccino. I remember sitting there, it was one of them posh coffees with the chocolate sprinkles on. And he explained how important being a dishwasher was. He said, "Peter, all the guests see from these dishes. I can't have smashed plates, breakages. You know, you've really got to look after my plate." He said, "And, you know, you can really go far in this industry." And I was like, I went from sitting like that to, oh, this is real, you know. And from that day on, I was like the girl in the Fairy Liquid advert, washing the dishes like they'd never been washed before, making sure they were stacked correctly. And the reason that 17-year-old lad did that was because that man valued me. It was his business. He wanted it to succeed, but he had a coffee with me and it really stuck with me. And it's something I still use all the time in business today. The importance of value is what creates great service. So I think as I go through this talk, there's some building blocks that we have to recognize. And people talk about great service all the time. And I think Philly and Chris alluded to it as well. Is like with a chef, they'll think, "Oh, I just, you know, need to know how to cook. And that's all it takes." We know in 2021, them days are gone. And what I learned from that dishwasher situation was the importance of value, because I would not be on this Zoom meeting today having this conversation if Nick's Italian Fishery 20, God, I didn't want to say how many years ago it was now, but because he valued me, I believed in his business and I wanted to do the best for him. I wanted to be the best dishwasher he'd ever had. So long story short, I spent nearly 3 years working for that guy and I went up to head waiter level. By this time, my younger sisters come out to Miami. So it's me and my two sisters living there. And one day we said, "Let's go to Vegas," as you do when you're a kid and you've got a dream. So we went to Las Vegas and I got a job at the MGM Grand on Las Vegas, the MGM. And the one thing that struck me about the MGM was how, excuse me, how much emphasis they really put into training and development. I remember on my first day, the show round, the structure, and I was like, wow, this is a really good business. And it really resonated with me that in our industry, and I'll talk a little bit more about training, but how vital training is from the induction, how vital training is from the interview stage to when you're showing a prospective employee, how you structure your interview, how you're on time. So I really took that from the MGM of the importance to create great service. You need to have a robust and solid training plan. The other thing that then comes into my story is resilience. And I'll talk a little bit about resilience again as you go through, because what happened when we were in Vegas, me and my two sisters were there for the year. And we were doing really well, and I'm, you know, working at the MGM and doing whatever. I was then 20, and unfortunately, my mum's sister passed away back in Liverpool. And I said to the girls, "We've got to go back. Let's get back home to mum," you know. And you know, ended up back on the dole. We lost everything. I was back in Liverpool, back on the same council estate I'd left 4 years before, and I thought it was game over, to be honest. But then I realised that I've got to keep going. And obviously, I've now got 4 years experience in the States. And my sister Zoe that got the modeling contract, her agent was in London. So I asked her, where in London is all the best hotels? And she said, oh, Kensington. So I arrived at the Royal Garden Hotel on High Street, Kensington. It was in 1996. And I was a young lad with ambition. And I'll tell this story again about to create great service, you have to believe in your people. As a leader, you have to believe in your people. You have to believe in your team. And the reason I realized this back in 1996 was because during the interview process, one of the questions was, can you silver serve? Because back then it was all about silver service. Trends change, are always changing. So back then it was all the silver servers. Mr. Bamford said to me, so can you silver serve? And I said, of course I can silver serve. I worked in Miami. So I got the job, and we were serving the Euro 96 football tournament. All the FA officials were staying at the Royal Garden, and I couldn't silver serve, obviously. And I was picking up the melon and putting it on the plate, and it was like the chairman, Bert Millerchip, and his wife, and I'm giving them the melon. And I saw Graham Bamford, who was the general manager, who was part of the interview, and he said, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm serving the melon. And he said, well, you're meant to be silver serving. And I said, well, I can't silver serve. And he said, you've lied. And I said, excuse me, Mr. Bamford, I didn't lie. I exaggerated. I'm actually a really good waiter. I just can't silver serve. Now, I'm a 21-year-old lad then, right? I think I'm getting kicked out the job. I'm about to get through onto High Street Ken with my suitcase. And my two sisters, I got them a job at the hotel as well. So they're working in the business centre and reception. And in my head, I'm thinking, I'm going to get launched out of this hotel. But Graham Bamford saw potential in me. He saw potential. He didn't fire me. He actually put me on a training management course. He said, there's something about you, Avis. He said, and you know what? You're going to go far. And I'll never forget it, the belief that Graham Bamford had in what I thought was going to be a disaster situation. And again, he showed value. He showed a genuine interest in me, and he wanted to develop my skill set. And I ended up spending over 2.5 years at the Royal Garden in High Street, Ken, and I got up to supervisory level. So as I've explained so far, throughout this career, I've had these really pinnacle lessons, the lesson of value, the lesson of taking time with the cappuccino dishwasher, the structure of training, the development at the Royal Garden. So I'm getting all these little lessons. And I don't know what the hell I want to be, by the way, like where I want to take my career, but I want to be something. I really wanted to be successful. And the light on moment for me was when I was at the Royal Garden, the then Israeli Prime Minister was staying at the hotel, and I was polishing glasses in the kitchen in this ridiculous aluminous blue waistcoat that we had to wear. And as Graham Bamford went through the kitchens with the Prime Minister and all these people, I just had this moment where I thought, I want to be a manager. I want to wear the suit. I want to be there. And I think what I've learned from it, and I think to the audience watching today, especially now in this climate we're in, we can't forget the influence we have on our team members. As a lecturer, as a chef watching here today, as an administrator, I forget the influence I can have on my team. And I have to remind myself of that, because Mr. Bamford, I still call him Mr. Bamford, he had such an impression on me that he changed the landscape of where I wanted to go. And we can be the manifestation of where that person takes their career. So I think whether you're teaching in a classroom at university, if you're in a kitchen, if you're a general manager like me, what we do and how we maneuver is what will create great service and is what will create a great engaged team. And definitely Graham Bamford did that for me. Anyway, when I finished my training management course, I got a bit big-headed then. I got headhunted. I was like, oh, early on, the recruiters want me now. And I got a assistant manager role in a small, let's say it was a small private members club in Knightsbridge. And I had a small restaurant and a small nightclub. And the two guys that owned it were brothers, not Chris and Jeff Galvin. Okay, there were two brothers who run this business. And when I was working there, I realized quite fast how little structure there was in the business. These two guys who had all the money in the world to invest in this business didn't know my name. The staff food was scrapings that had been there for a day or two. It was absolutely horrendous. They weren't paying the staff on time. There was no marketing, there was no vision, there was no strategy. And when I got into it, I thought, God, this is terrible. But actually, I learned a lot of lessons from that of what great service doesn't look like and how we shouldn't do it. So I lasted there for the best part of just over a year. And then I was approached to open Babylon restaurant at the Roof Gardens in Kensington, part of the Virgin Group. And when I got the role at Babylon, it was quite evident from the beginning that there was a culture. And what I learned really early on, and what's really, really, really important to create a great front of house and to create a very successful Estilic business the main thing for me is the brand needs to marry the culture. And in Virgin, the one thing that stuck out right away was the brand did marry the culture. And in previous places I'd worked, the brand didn't marry the culture. And it was quite confusing. I'm going to give an example of what I mean by that. When I worked in the hotel, and this is just how things used to be, so I'm not being critical here, but the brand of the hotel was everyone that comes to our hotel is family. They'll be treated as family and they will act as family. That was their brand. The culture, we had to call senior managers and you had to call people by their surname, Mr. or Mrs. There was a certain etiquette within the culture that didn't marry the brand for me. And when I got to Virgin, that very much married, and the brand in Virgin really married the culture. And what I mean by that was the brand was screw it, let's do it, as an example. And we were encouraged to have a voice. So in Virgin, when at Babylon, you know, what were our thoughts? How can we be involved in the business? They shared minutes of meetings with the team members. And I was an assistant manager and thought, wow, that's really cool. Like, I feel part of this. I feel that they're not just talking to me, we're talking together. And they really encouraged ideas. And that was something that really, really stuck out to me. And during my tenure at Babylon, I was really able to shape what I felt was great front of house service and what created a great culture. And some of the main things that I applied at Babylon to ensure it became a successful business was ensuring the team were valued. And I think that's a really, really important lesson for front of house, is that we need to value our team members. Like that cappuccino story I've just shared, I was able to really value my team and really bring them to be part of this vision that we had for Babylon back in 2001. And giving them a voice in the business, that's really important. They can come up with some of the best ideas. One story I could share on giving the team a voice. So when you're running a business, and I think Chris and Philly really touched on this before quite a lot, and I know Chris very well, is very clear about this, is you have to have a commercial awareness about your business. You have to be sophisticated in how you run your business as well. And when we were creating the vision one year for Babylon, like, what are we going to do next year? We had an outside terrace area. And in the winter time, this terrace was never used. It was a dead space. And when we were creating, you know, what are we going to do with the business next year? One young waiter who was 18, Thomas, he was part of the discussion, and he said, well, why don't we do a winter terrace, like do some hot cheeses, some hot cocktails? He said they do it in Poland all the time. And I was like, oh, and actually that concept grew and grew. And before we closed Roof Gardens, that winter terrace was bringing in £380,000 net revenue per year. So it was massive. Why was that? I didn't have that idea. I'm very open about it. I'm dyslexic. So at that time, I had a lot of difficulties on the business side of the business. I was really strong operationally, but I was average spend, budgets, P&Ls. At that point in my career, you know, I wasn't educated at school very well. So I had to learn on the job. So by giving the team a voice and showing them that their ideas are valued in the business can really have a positive effect on that business, because they want to strive and go that extra mile for the business. So I think it's really important to engage the team. And that was something we did really well at Babylon. I'm now going to try and share the screen and show you a document that I used as a measurement for how we run the business. And it's an old document that I'm going to try and share now. Okay, guys. So sorry. Okay, so this is, again, a document that goes back to 2009, is no longer valid, so I'm just sharing what it was. So what we would do, and what's really important for me, to create a really good, strong front of house, and to make sure, as Chris Galvin was saying earlier, and Neil was alluding to, it's a business. And a business needs to be profitable. It needs to be, in my opinion, you need to be a force for good. And we'll talk about that, about community engagement and stuff. But you really need to know where your businesses are. So this first section here, what we would do towards the end of the financial year is summarize in quite detail how the business had performed for the previous 2 years and where it was going in the next year. So we as a management team, and I think what's really important, again, for front of house is your management team need to be commercially aware. It happened with me. So when I first started at Babylon in 2001, just going back a second and I'll come back to this document, I became, in 2002, I've been there for a year, the then restaurant manager. So I was brought in as the assistant manager. And the restaurant manager said to me, so Peter, you need to understand your average spends, and you need to understand the revenue. And I got the fear of God through me. I literally got the fear of God. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm that lad that left school with no qualifications, that didn't even open his maths GCSE paper. And I got the fear of God. And I decided I was going to find another job, and I did. I got a job for quite a well-known restaurateur that had a famous partner that I happened to know that was opening a restaurant, and they offered me the position of maitre d'. So I went back and I resigned from my position at Babylon. I gave me resignation, and the HR director come to me and she's like, Peter, why are you leaving? And I said, oh God, they're paying me more money. She said, are you sure that's the reason? I said, yeah, Lynn, I'm leaving because they're paying me more money. And she said, how much more are they paying you? And they weren't paying me more money. They were paying me the same as I was on. And I added 5K on to what they offered me. And she went, okay, give me a couple of days. And she came back and she counter offered me. And I went, what? She went, you've got to be honest. Why are you leaving? And I said, Lynn, I can't do it. I can't do average spends and figures and these things. And she said, oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. She said, and we can help you get there. She said, stay with us and we'll help you. And because I was open about my weakness of figures and percentages and stuff, she got me mentored with the financial controller at Roof Gardens at the time. And I used to do a mentoring session every Tuesday. And I can tell you now, I'm very acute and I'm very obviously experienced. But I think the other lesson to learn for front of house professionals and for kitchen professionals is how important it is to really, especially in hospitality, it's not sometimes our number one thing, whether you're a chef or a supervisor coming up. So I think it's really important that you have that about you and just say, do they need some extra support there? Because when I was given the extra support with a P&L, it really helped me develop my skills. And that's when I was able to really get more sophisticated and detailed with figures. And also having some geeks that are great with Excel sheets on the team usually helps me as well. So this is summarizing the year. So we know how we finished the year. And then what we would do is summarize, how the previous year went. But then what we have is a vision for the next year. So what's really important for me in a business is that you have, I'm just going to bring up to the document, is a vision of where the business is going. And let me just share this one with you guys. Sorry, I'm just trying to find this right one. Just bear with me. So the vision report, what we would do at Babylon is it's very important that a business like here, is having a clear vision of what your business is. So what was Babylon? Our strategy was to stay consistent and was to be a high-end destination restaurant where our team would offer high-end, confident and genuine service each and every time. And then how are you going to achieve that? So we would have things like monitor and review our SOPs, increase product knowledge, all the way through to the board, the reception, the kitchen, and then key objectives as well. Because in my experience in a business, if you don't have the measurement and the clear strategy of where that business is going, you can't expect the team to deliver the service that you expect of them. So everything we do in our business has to have a clear strategy our key objectives, and then a methods of achievement. And not just the methods of achievement to have in a file and say, oh, isn't this a great job we've done, but a methods of achievement that you can then look back on with your team and see, did that work? Didn't it work? Did we achieve 25 weddings for 10 people over the year? I think it's really important to have them key indicators for the team. So that was how we maneuvered at Babylon. And when I opened Babylon in 2001, it was making £480,000 revenue. When we closed it in 2017, it was making over 4.7 million. So you can really see that by me as the leader, me as the general manager, me as the front of house conductor of this orchestra, is the way I'd see it, we were able to really do amazing things. Now, the only way that I ever achieved the success we had at Babylon, and Babylon went on to win Best Sustainable Restaurant in the UK. She won the Best London Restaurant Awards. We won quite a few accolades there. It was all because of the team. And I know Chris and Philly were speaking about it before, of the importance now in 2021, and especially what we're going through now, of how important it is that you have a structure, that you have strong leadership, that you have measurement, that you know what your business is, that you know what your P&L is going to look like. Because if you don't do that, you become a busy fool. You really become a busy fool in our industry. And that's what I learned and I was at Virgin, you know, I was lucky enough and thankful and that I was able to spend 15 years with the Virgin Group. And I had some amazing experiences there, and it was my schooling and it was where I grew up. But then what I realized when we were closing the roof gardens down, I was working for Virgin Limited Edition. So I had an amazing job. I was flying out to Richard's Private Island, and I was going to South Africa, then to Casbah in Morocco, and doing new openings. I even went on a spaceship in New Mexico to look at Virgin Galactic and what's hospitality in space looking like. And it was a great 15 years. But I also realized when I was offered a full-time role from them at the end to stay on with the group, I did realize that even at my age and at my level, if I want to still be a leader, and if I still want to sit in front of you guys in audiences like this and be a spokesperson in hospitality, I've got to widen now. I've got to keep that ambition. I've got to go into new sectors. And I think that's really important to create a really great front of house experience for our guests in this ever moving world. You've got to get diverse experience. I think that's really important. So I set up my own business in 2017 when we closed Roof Gardens. And what I did was some consultancy work, because one of my big, I get more pleasure from developing managers and working with young managers and students and people starting out in the industry, and really helping them to develop their skill set without them feeling intimidated. Because I remember when I was younger, how people could make me feel that I was stupid, that I was a divvy, as I'd say in Liverpool. And I've learned as a leader that you can be taught and educated. And if you can create an environment where young people feel, I can ask what's 10% of 100. My little girl will ask it, you know, and I think it's really important we create a safe place in our businesses where people can put their hand up and say. So when I did my consultancy, that was the main reason I did it, was to get out there. And I work with contract caterer like the amazing Wendy Bartlett, the Bartlett and Mitchell. I work with Fulham Football Club. I was working on resorts in the Caribbean. And really trying to get I worked in a cafe, and it was really interesting to get a stylic view of different ways of operating. And I did that business for two and a half years. And I think, as Chris was saying before me, we go through things, experience in our lives, and I got to a point with the consultancy where I really missed the restaurant. I really missed being on the floor. I really missed being with a consistent team. I was a bit like Nanny McPhee with the consultancy in the end, because when they need you, you're there, but when they just want you, you can't be there. So you don't form that relationship with the teams, and I was really missing that. And then in December last year, I got a call to say that Fred had stepped down from his position at Windows, and did I want to have a chat? And I ended up having this conversation with Chris and Jeff Galvin, and I'd had various conversations with different restaurants, and they just didn't. Their culture didn't marry the brand, and I could see that with some people right away. But when I met Chris and Jeff at the Hilton, I just knew that this was the place for me. It was like coming home, you know. It was like, this is where I need to be. Chris was talking about like the Galvin chant and how they maneuver in business, and how important it is, as he was saying earlier, to develop people and to give back. And I strongly, strongly believe, right, that you can have the best front of house operators in the world, but if they're not managed well and if they're not feeling valued, they will not give the service to a consistent level at the top of the game. And when I got the role at Galvin at Windows, I think what struck me right away was the potential it's got. I think Chris said it before, you know, this restaurant's got huge potential. Now, I was only there 2 weeks when the COVID-19 conversation started. I was like, the new kid on the block's not going to last long here. But it was amazing to be surrounded by such great leaders like Chris, like my director of food and beverage, Kim, Mr. Shepherd, the general manager. And just listening to their conversations, I thought, we're going to be okay here. You know, we're going to get through this. But just before the COVID started, we were recruiting for a new head chef, because the head chef, Jew, that had been with us for many years, decided to move on. And what I remember Chris saying to me from the outset, he was like, you know, and it really was like songs to me. He said, the chef has to have an understanding of the business. We can't just look for a great chef that can cook, you know, that can cook great food. Whoever comes in needs to understand the staff cost, the food cost, the development of team. And Chris has got a sixth sense with people. I mean, Neil probably knows that. He just gets people. And he knew that Mark Hardiman, our new head chef who was at the Ritz, was the guy, and he got recruited just before the close down. And Mark, like me, is a good British lad. You know, he's from Bristol. He's got some great experience. He was previously at the Ritz, but he really understands the floor as well as the kitchen. And just going on to what Chris and Philly were saying, I think in the front of house now, guests have got more understanding of food. So when we talk about trends that are changing, what I've found at Windows, definitely throughout this pandemic, is trends are changing really fast. And I think, and I didn't want to touch on COVID-19 too much, but I think what COVID-19, it's a complete disaster, but I see some little green shoots of positivity that come from it, from the COVID-19. So what they are is the management team I've got at Windows at the moment. I really feel that since the COVID-19 pandemic's happened, we've had to put a lot more focus on the bottom line than we ever have before, because the revenues are not coming in. So we've really got to have a better understanding of that cost control. And that's been an opportunity for me to really try and get the management team to understand that profit and revenue relationship. So I think that's been a positive for me. I think the other thing that I've noticed when we reopened in August after the first lockdown, is guests really want that service. They really want the interaction from Mark. Like, Mark will come out and speak to the guests on the floor. We were having one conversation after the first lockdown. I don't know how many lockdowns we've had now. It was lockdown number 1. And there was one guest that she was really interested in chef's cod dish, and she really knew the ingredients, and she was asking of different ways to cook it. And she, at the end of the meal, she was like, wow, you guys have just really, really made this experience even better. And that was just because the chef came out and had that conversation. So I think it's really important that when we're working now as a team, the chef and the general manager, they need to be in sync. And in my previous place, I had that relationship. And I think it's really important that to create great service on the floor, you need to have a great relationship, kitchen, front of house, and you need to work on that. Otherwise, it won't be genuine when it's being delivered to the guests. Another thing is training. as I touched on earlier, I think in our industry, we can be quite fickle when it comes to training, especially in the front of house. I strongly believe that training has to be a really delegated, focused part of the business in order to develop the team on all different levels. We do a lot of cross training. I think that's the big lesson I learned with training coming back from COVID was, we have less resource. So it's really important that you get your teams to be cross-trained, waiters in reception, bartenders being hosts, managers being cloakroom attendants, and, making sure that cross-train is really structured in your businesses as well. And it helps the team members to develop. I also think to create that great service, you need to have a honest relationship with your team as well. I think in 2021, team members expect more from us as managers than what I've seen in past. I know when I started, and I was embarrassed by it, I slept in the restaurant because I was doing that many shifts at the time. I'd done a late double, then I had an early, and I ended up sleeping in the lounge and going to the gym to change. And I think them days are gone. I think we have to have work balance. We have to have an understanding of what team members' lives are about. Do they want to train to be a doctor? Are they in it to be a full-time professional? And I really think as managers, we need to have an understanding of the strengths of the team and where the best fitted in the business. Standards to create that great front of house service, you need to have robust and agreed SOPs. When I say agreed, I've worked in businesses where they'll say, go on, that's your SOP. That's how we do it. Get on with it. I believe you need to get the team to buy into them SOPs. You need to discuss the SOP manual with your team members and say, are you happy with this? Is there anything you'd like to add to this document or take away from it? Because at the end of the day, if you get your team to buy into the service standards that you're offering, then they own them with you. So you're not having to battle with them to do them. So I think when it comes to standards, it's really important you have the buy-in of the team and genuinely listen to what they've got to say, because I've got that wrong many times. Development plans for your team as well are really important. Not long stretched out ones, but just know what are them key areas that they need to develop and which areas are they doing really well, I think is really important. We touched on trends. I think trends are moving really fast. We had a wine dinner booked at Galvin at Windows in between lockdown 1 and 2. And we had every seat in the restaurant was sold with social distancing, of course. And then we realized we couldn't get the supplier to come from Italy as planned. The suppliers couldn't come to talk about the wine at Galvin at Windows with our head sommelier, Redina. So what we did is we got a big screen put in the restaurant and we did a live Zoom to surprise the guests. And actually the guests absolutely loved it. It was like, wow, wow, wow. And one thing I've learned is that we have to adapt right now to these changing trends. So if that means putting a screen in the restaurant and creating great service through a flat screen in the middle of Galvin at Windows, that's what we have to do. We have to innovate big time at the moment, I think is happening to everyone. You need to stay ahead. I think that's really, really key. What are competitors doing? When we come to budget preparation time, we'll be going out to different restaurants, getting a chef, a waiter, a bartender, a receptionist, going out to some competitors and just seeing what are they doing, because you can't compete with your competitors if you don't actually know what they're really doing. So it's something that I really encourage with my team is to get out to key competitors. I think Brexit is in the background for all of us right now in our industry. Very fast after COVID on one side and then Brexit on the other. And what are the challenges with that? And we know there's big challenges with that. I think everyone that's here today knows that we've always had a challenge recruiting good British team members because of the perception of front of house. And I think it's something we've been working on and making progress with. Supplier complications from a menu perspective. I know Chef Mark Hardiman, my chef, was talking about a certain pigeon he's not going to be able to get so easily from France. So we have to look, instead of looking out the box too much, I think it's about looking in the box now and saying, what do we have here? What are our resources? Because the change in landscape we're in, we need to keep adapting or we won't survive. No matter if you're a big, Galvin at Windows, a Hilton or a small independent restaurant, I think it's really important to stay ahead of the game. And key to that right now, more than ever for me, is PR, marketing, social media. I mean, it's a trend. And I think for me, being on the other side of 40, you've really got to stay connected to that. You've got to listen to the younger people. Like my little boy doesn't think Facebook's cool anymore. I'm like, what? So it's moving on to TikTok and all these other apps. So I think when it comes to PR, you've got to know what your brand is, what your business is, what your positioning is. And that'll give you your PR. You know, your marketing is a key element. And I know at Windows and through Chris, we have very robust marketing plans that we work from, because these are what help the guests coming in that create a great service once the guests arrive as well. Another thing that is really important for me when it comes to front of house service is the P&L awareness as well. Just from a business perspective, it's really important to have that revenue and cost understanding, as we said earlier. Otherwise, the business world won't survive on that. Some of the other key points that I've learned as well is the networking. Networking is really important. If you want to keep the best team members, you want to know what the best trends are, what's happening in the industry. It's really important to get young people to sign up to. I've just joined the board of the Institute of Hospitality, the supervisory board, just to to understand what's going on in the industry, what's the different scopes that are happening right now. So I think networking for young people and for us as all of us, networking is really, really important. I read a lot of books. Just got them next to me now. So I'm reading Start With Why is a really important book for me. 5-Star Service, another one, which is really good. Radical Candor, because I'm really big on feedback. You've got to give feedback, and sometimes we don't want to give feedback. This is one of the best books I've read on giving candid feedback at time. And obviously my Bible is Danny Meyer's Setting the Table. I actually got, in 2009, I got to work with Danny Meyer at 11 Madison in New York. And that was a show of a master front of house experience. He really engaged with his teams. He made sure everyone was valued. His staff meal, which I brought to Babylon, was called a family meal. And the one thing at Danny Meyer's restaurants is it's all about the service. It's all about going above and beyond and attention to detail. And I think that's what brings everything together for me from a front of house perspective. Is my job at Galvin at Windows as the general manager. My job is I'm a conductor, and my orchestra is my team. And I need to make sure they are all in tune. And it can be frustrating at times, but I haven't got it on today. But every time I put my suit on and put my costume on, I become the general manager. And my team will tell you, as soon as I walk in, it's a detailed walkthrough of that business, checking everything's right. The toilets are good. The light bulbs are good. The detail of what guests expect from our business. And to a point that someone said to me in my previous place, Peter, you're quite anal when it comes to attention to detail. Not everyone notices if every table is at the same setup. And I said, yeah, but when you get that one guest, like Mr. Freeman at Roof Gardens, and he'd say, Peter, I really like how each and every time your team served the wine, it's just always so consistent every single time. And that just made me feel, all that hard work in the background, backstage about wine temperature for the right wines, storing the wines, making sure the glass is polished correctly. These are all instrumental little things that we must do as front of house professionals and kitchen professionals, hospitality professionals, in order to create that great experience. And even if only one guest recognizes that, and even if only one guest goes, you've really gone the extra mile again today, I think that's the feeling we get and go, yeah, we're on the right track and we're doing what we love. Because I think the other speakers were saying, we lead with our hearts. We do this job because we love it. We do this because we're passionate, and I'm more than ever coming back into the industry full time. I'm more passionate now than ever. And I know that the times we're all going through at the moment are really tough, but I know as an industry together, we're going to come through this and we're going to come out of it bigger, better, and hopefully more sleek in how we run our businesses. And I think from an education point of view, it's vital that we do more for front of house. I think it's vital that, like in the States, Danny Meyer's staff go to Cornell and have all these training opportunities. I would love to see the education sector in the UK put a lot more focus on the front of house and really showcase what we do in the UK is fantastic. And that's really it from me, guys. I can talk, huh?
You've never been short of a few words.
God, I didn't even stop for the breath. Let me get some water.
Thanks, Peter. Would you mind not sharing your screen? We'll take that document down.
Oh, yeah.
And then
I'm really bad, aren't I? How's that?
No, don't worry.
Am I back now?
But, yeah, I pinned you. So we've got 10 minutes left. So I'm sure that some of the participants would like to ask you questions, but I'd just like to ask you one as well. Looking in the box was a great quote, and the problems with supply of the pigeon that you mentioned?
Yeah.
That would, in terms of trends, that sort of suggests that perhaps there'll be more emphasis that's almost pushing you towards sort of more local ingredients, not looking so far, looking at things that are more accessible within the UK and maybe adjusting menus and concepts accordingly. Have you got any thoughts on that? Do you think the menu might change or?
Yeah, no, I was talking to Chef this morning. We're talking most days, me and Mark, and we were talking about our opener menus. And I think Mark and Chris and the Galvin group, you know, they do look at locally and look at what we got around us first and foremost, and you know, and they have such strong relationships with all of their local suppliers. But then, you know, guests do like to have a French pigeon on the menu, and it's something that's different in line with what we do. I think, Mark is now looking more, what do we have more here? So with the pigeon, you know, well, okay, I can't get the pigeon from France not just because of cost, because of delivery, will it come on time and all the paperwork that goes with it. So we'll look at, okay, well, what do I have locally that could, so I do think it will put us in that direction a lot more, the way it's looking. So looking at what we can get more locally and sustainably will be definitely a way we'll have to look.
Okay. And do you think it'll have an impact on
Oh, has he frozen?
Yeah, no, he's Neil has been having a couple of issues with his internet.
But I think just following on from Neil while till he comes back, I think the other thing that we all that's a good point with the pigeon, and this from a supplier point of view. I think from a front of house as well, we've got to be ready that we're not going to have that pool from Europe we had before. It could be more difficult, you know, and especially what I'm finding in lockdown 3 is a lot of the young people just can't survive in London because of the price, and they're getting 80% of their basic. So they're really seeing how difficult life can be financially in London at the moment as well. So I do think that from a front of house, we do need to start looking inwardly at our pipelines a lot more in order to sustain, because I think when we go back in, hopefully in March, we're going to be really busy. And we want to make sure we've got the team ready to go with that busyness as well.
Okay, no, thanks for that. Let's go to some of the lecturers now that we actually work with. We've got Stephen. Can you unmute a minute, please, Stephen? From Bath College in the sunny climes.
Love it.
Steve, in terms of your learners and what we do with the Chefs Forum Academy at Bath College, you know, how useful would you think it is to sort of put on a few more masterclasses with front of house?
Definitely, I would love to see more. As you know, well, we're waiting to open our brand new restaurant at Bath College, and any advice and classes on front of house would be more than welcome. I can't actually. I was going to ask you if this session has been recorded, because yes. I would like to show it to a couple of my colleagues. I found it very interesting, particularly.
Absolutely, and we'll also do. I've been making notes. You know, like the books that Peter recommended. You know, start with why, 5-star service. You know, radical. All of those we will put into note form for you, and give you a little fact sheet of the session to accompany as well.
That'd be good, yeah.
So I just want to flip to Sylvain now from West London College. Sylvain, can you unmute, please?
Afternoon, all.
Bonjour, Sylvain.
Hi, Sylvain.
Bonjour, Catherine.
Tell us, you're a massive proponent of front of house at the college, aren't you?
Yeah. It was pleasing to hear that that gentleman sort of saying, well, you know, trying to pass the message on, the same message we try to pass on to our students. Really, you know, love the front of house, love it yourself, have the passion, and value your staff. This is also one of the first lessons I learned when I arrived in London all these years ago. So in terms of more of these sessions, yeah, obviously welcoming any discussion, any talk about the front of house. I don't know, perhaps I was also eager to sort of find out what others do in terms of delivering, you know, sort of online lessons with front of house as a subject. So I don't know, maybe sharing best practice or you know, in terms of other session of that Chef Forum could organize. I don't know, put lecturers in contact with lecturers, perhaps, and I don't know, but more would be welcome, obviously.
Well, we actually plan, Sylvain, to actually put on like full day events going forward. So whether they're virtual for now or whether they're actually in person, we'll get the various different colleges to host each time and get all you front of house experts together for a powwow and share best practice. Andrew Foster from the Manchester College, I can just unmute you for a moment, please, sir.
I can. No, it's very interesting to hear Peter's background, actually, because, you know, we get a lot of students in the city, Manchester, same kind of background, Peter, and it's really good to see, you know, that there is that progression that they can make it. I'd love to get you up to, you know, to come and give some feedback or show, you know, what you've talked about today to the students, and show this is, you know, hard work, perseverance, dedication, and a thirst for knowledge. This is what's going to get you. You know, it's lovely. It was lovely to hear, actually.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I can only, you know, with Sylvain saying about getting us all together as doing some more. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I do sometimes think that front of house is the neglected side of the industry. You know, all the focus seems to be very much on, yeah, we've got wonderful chefs.
Chef, yeah.
And then show me a front of house person. Yeah. And everybody always comes up with Fred.
Yeah.
Well, who's the guy from Fred?
And now you've got a Scouser. I'm joking.
Now we're the Scouser. Neighbours.
Exactly. But no, listen, I mean, I'll take it offline, but I would with pleasure, you know, take time to come to Manchester and to any of the colleges I can. And it's really important for me now more than ever, you know, that we really push on it. So, and every little helps, as they say, you know what I mean? So definitely up for taking things forward with Neil. Definitely.
We've got a question.
Sorry,
we've got a raised hand from Alena.
Hi.
Alena.
Hello.
Hello.
Hiya. Hi, you okay?
Hiya.
What college are you from, Elena?
I'm from Blackmore College.
Oh, hello.
Hiya, you okay? So I teach front of house, actually. And for last 12 years, I've been teaching front of house. I've been fighting to show the student, you know, the passion and the drive. And because our student, we know Blackpool is a deprived area, so they choose catering front of house as the last option. But then you will find there's that rough diamond in them. When you tweak them, they have fantastic customer care skills. They have the drive, the passion, and they are so natural with the customers. But it's so difficult to show them that there is future. You can have a fantastic life being a front of house staff. Doesn't matter. You can be a waiter, you can be a sommelier, you can be a, you know, bar manager, anything like that. So what I wanted to say is it would be fantastic if we can maybe contact and I get you to speak to my student, because majority of them they don't have that vision. They got the skills, but they don't have that vision, and also they don't have the support from the family. So hearing your background, where you're from and how did you go about, I think that would maybe boost their ambitions.
No, I think it's really, that's what I find when I do talk to students, and I didn't do it too much here, but when you have that truth of conversation and they know where I'm really, you know, like Blackpool, and I know Blackpool well, and when they really get my, and the estate I grew up on, and, you know, that I always say to the kids when I speak to them, or the students, is don't let your past be your failure. Let it be your fuel to succeed, because I'm only where I am today. I was a cheeky, very cheeky lad from a council estate in Liverpool that ended up in Miami. So I was quite naive to the perception of hospitality, because I just didn't, I didn't get there. But it was my upbringing and my Liverpool life that has made me such, you know, you're brought up to be cheeky, but if you can, when you learn that line, the magic happens and the success happens. And I do it a lot at roof gardens. I mean, I didn't talk about it too much, where every year I used to bring my junior school from Liverpool down to London and bring them to the roof gardens, and then would offer them mentoring sessions and would help with accommodation and train travel. And that was the reason I've come on board with the Galvin group, because they have the Galvin Chance, where they help ex-offenders and disadvantaged young people. And our industry is not just about that, but I do think I love when I'm talking to students and they see what's happened to me. You know, I'll talk about my times on Neckhead and meeting certain people, and you see the light come on. You see the light come on. I've walked their street. I've lived that life. I've just taken something from it, and I'm being very successful. Very, you know.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Peter. I just want to switch now to Denise Charles, who heads up hospitality and catering at West London College. We've got an academy with her. Denise, you know, a lot of this resonates with, you know, your learners, and you're massively, massively supportive of them. And you really push them. We've taken your learners to the Dorchester. We've taken your learners, you know, to Cyrus Toddywallers, Cafe Spice Namaste. You know, they absolutely love what you do with them, don't they? Tell us a bit more about the journey.
So, yeah, the students absolutely love being part of the Chefs Forum Academy. Not only have we done the Dorchester, but I think one of my favourite was Clifton House, because that was just absolutely, that was fantastic. The students had a really, really good day there. And I think it's also the support that we're getting from the Chefs Forum Academy. You know, when I looked at the journey of how to get there, I was like, Catherine, there's no way we're going to be able to get there by public transport. You're going to have to help me out. And, you know, Catherine and Chefs Forum were able to ensure that we had a minibus that would take us there, bring us back, so the students could have that experience. We've done lunches with Chefs Forum Academy, where they've brought in people that the students would never get to meet and have in the restaurant with us, doing the lovely dessert on the table where you're splashing, with Jessie, splashing this and putting this on the table. You know, the students, if you saw them, how their eyes were just lighting up and amazing. We literally have to do a rota to ensure that everyone can have a fair go at attending the different workshops that are put on for them. They read the recipes before the lessons. They actually come to me and they'll be like, Miss, this is wrong. You're going to have to tell them that it's not correct. The recipe's not right. And I'm like, okay, just bear with us. We'll get there. But, you know, they're really, really up for taking part in the events. For this year, where we've had the virtual lessons, we've had students who have been supporting the chefs when they come in to do the pre-recorded videos, because they can't get into work to do them. And they're just loving it. They really, really are. So I have to say, you know, thank you so much to Chefs Forum for giving our students the opportunity to have that wide range of enrichment opportunities that they're taking part in. So Catherine, Alex, Rebecca, thank you.
Thank you, Denise, and thanks for having us. You know, we just want to roll this out. We want to work with more colleges. You came up to Manchester with us to kind of tell them what we were doing now, and here we are nearly 2 years later, running an academy up there now, you know. So, you know, we are offering curriculum enrichment for front of house, for chefs, and for teaching professionals now as well. And it works, you know. It's a good little model, and we've got some great people in the industry, and it's about celebrating the best bits and sharing best practice like you know, the guys have all said on this call. You know, it's great that you've all been able to join us, albeit virtually, but we all meet up in person in the not too distant future.
Can I add one thing to that as well, Catherine? It's not just the enrichment. We've had students who've had work experience, job opportunities from it as well. They've had trade days. You've given them certificates to say that they've done a trade test with different, you know, the Sheraton, and then they've gone on to gain jobs from that as well. So it's not just the enrichment. It does open the doors for jobs as well.
Absolutely. You know, and it's about broadening the net. You know, Peter, if you start linking up with the Manchester College students, you know, you're casting your net wider.
Oh yeah.
I'd love to introduce you personally, Denise, Peter, Denise, West London College, Hammersmith and Fulham. Let's make it happen.
Definitely.
And we did a session with Fred at Windows as well, where we went in, and I think that might have been from you as well, Catherine. We went in and spent a morning where he told us all about the customer service, and again, the students loved it. We want to do a day where we come in and we set the tables, and you actually showed them how to set the tables and have a lunch. We'll pay
we got it.
Yeah,
we got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Denise.
Sorry, everyone. I got my internet dropped just a couple of minutes ago, so I got thrown out.
Hello.
Got a little chat without you now.
Time in my life, but there you go.
Yeah. If I just wanted to just, oh, sorry, it's fine.
Go on, Sylvain. Sorry.
It was just a cheeky comment to Peter, just reminding that this is recorded.
Yes.
Just saying.
I forgot about that. Good.
Right, Neil, is there anything you'd like to finish up with, Neil?
Really, just to say thank you to everyone for joining us today, and I'm sure everyone will join me in saying thanks to Peter for such a sort of open, honest, and really interesting talk. So, you know, thanks for giving up your time, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of people knocking at your door or emailing you in the meantime, or Zooming until we can knock on your door physically. But it's been brilliant, and I've really enjoyed the whole afternoon. It was, you know, it's a new thing for us all to set up something like this, so it's been great. And really, just to close, to say that we'll be sending out a questionnaire and evaluation once the conference is completely finished. And we'd ask people just to give us some feedback and any thoughts and ideas they may have for future CPD needs or future ideas. So it's been great. So thanks everyone for participating. Anybody else like to say anything before we close up? Because we haven't got the pressure of another session after this one. We can do it properly. So I was supposed to show in the last thing, I'll just show you here. I had a lovely image of Philly. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
About different competencies, which I was supposed to show everybody in the last one, but it just shows you, you know, we could do this for the front of house as well. The sort of practical competencies that people need. You know, and their sort of customer facing or their kitchen skills requirements, but then on the other side of it, just how important all these other things are in terms of, you know, making business successful. So I'm sure Catherine will tell me off once we put the phone down that I should have, or close the line down, that I should have showed everyone this, but we'll have to send it to them. But no,
we can send it to them, and we can also, like Neil says, produce a front of house version. So, and we can put, you know, front of house professionals wearing, you know, just don't have to say wearing two hats, because they're not really wearing hats, are they, front of house? But you know, we could do a similar graphic and share it with you all, so you've got that to show the students as well and your peers. Because what I hope happens is, you know, not all members of staff have been on, you know, the Sheffy calls or the expert masterclasses or the front of house, and you can all go back to the team and share what you've taken from these sessions with those that weren't on the calls, and so it'd feel like a mini presentation of your own. All of them are recorded. You can share all the you know, insight and knowledge that you gain from these sessions, you know, and naturally Peter will share them all with you as well, because it's a great resource. You know, we'll just get the designer on doing a front of house version and make it you. You can be the model. Not just your sister, not just your sister. So there you go.
Might come back as a model.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Thank you all so much.
Tick all the boxes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
oh well. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Al. Bye, guys.
Yeah, cheers, Peter.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Neil.